finally be told. Don't miss Eye on Dependency this Sunday from 10 a.m. live on I-95.5 FM and streaming live on the Eye on Dependency Facebook page and YouTube channel. Eye on Dependency. We don't just share stories, we change lives.
Eye on Dependency with Garth and Natasha.
Reality radio at its best, where every life is a biography.
Sundays at 10 a.m. and exclusively on I-95.5 FM.
And streamed live on the Eye on Dependency Facebook page and YouTube channel.
Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago, and welcome to Eye on Dependency, right here on I-95.5 FM, live on our Eye on Dependency Facebook page, that's EYE on Dependency's Facebook page, and YouTube channel of the same name. Morning, Natasha.
Good morning, Garth. Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago, and welcome to Eye on Dependency. We have some very special gentlemen in studio and a very special topic that we have covered somewhat from a different perspective, from the military perspective, in terms of the account of what took place on July 27th and the subsequent days in 1990. But now we are fortunate that the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service has put together a documentary called Code 727, which documents the fallout, I should say. I mean, I haven't seen it, but Garth has, but documents the perspective of the police service in this attempted coup.
So let me put it into context. The Trinidad and Tobago Police Service experienced serious loss and trauma in the 1990 attempted coup. Apart from the officers who lost their lives, our fortress, our home, our headquarters on the corner of St. Vincent's and Sackville Streets, Port of Spain, was burnt. Until now, history has all but forgotten us, and in some hushed corners, our story is remembered only as a passing joke. While conducting research at the start of this project, we realized that for the last 32 years, the focus and conversation of the events of 1990 was strictly on what transpired at the seat of power, the Red House Parliament, and the roles of the media and the Defense Force. We, the TTPS, are barely a footnote in the history of the attempted coup. Welcome to our story. Code 727 recounts in gripping detail the actual experience of police officers who served their country bravely at the Parliament and the police headquarters on July 27, 1990. It is our hope that our story speaks a new conversation. Welcome to Code 727. Our story begins on this date 32 years ago on a beautiful Friday afternoon. And that is where we would like to begin this journey. Remember, for the month of August, folks, we're paying tribute to all arms of the protective service. And we're starting with the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. This is part one. They'll be here again next Sunday with Ms. Corby and a couple others. But we are going to delve inside what really happened to our officers on that day. As you heard from the missive here, the public was made to believe that all police officers just blended in with civilians and ran home. That did not happen. That was so far from the truth. And when I sat in that screening last Wednesday, I was riveted from beginning to end. And this is the teasers that we're going to have for you leading up to the release of this documentary. I urge you, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, to look out for this and be prepared to be moved, to be inspired, to be shocked by some of the testimonies that you will hear from this documentary. It is that riveting and powerful. We would like to start on a light note because this topic is really deep. So we're going to take a break. And when we return, we're going to give you a little display of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service when they participated. I think it was a tattoo in Germany, the band. You talk about sweet music. And we have a lady in studio here. I think I saw her in that video, if I'm not mistaken. WPC Marshall, am I correct? Nadine Marshall Joseph. She's here very quiet, taking some photos of us in studio here this morning. So let's go to that break quickly. Lighten up the mood a bit with this interlude from the Prison Service Band.
Police Service Band.
Police Service Band. And I'm thinking, the other arms of the protective service, we ask their bands to do the same for us too. So we're going to have this little nice teaser from the Police Service Band. And then we go into code 727. We'll be back. Stay right there.
Don't become a headline. Doing construction, picking fruit or trimming trees? Keep bamboo rods, ladders, scaffolding, roof beams, oversized material of any type, and body parts at least 15 feet from electricity poles and lines. Before doing any type of work close to overhead lines or to the point of connection to your home, and before digging where there are underground lines, contact T&Tech for a temporary disconnection so you can work safely. T&Tech, the power to make it work.
Finally, Welcome Relief comes in the form of a scientific-based program that shows us how to manage through the tough, current challenges. Called Habitalism. It features best-selling author on positivity and happiness, Dr. Tal Ben-Shahar, integrated with the award-winning Intangence methodology of Ross. Visit habitalism.me to register now for this free life-transforming program endorsed by the United Nations established University for Peace. Gifted by Guardian Group. Live easy.
Cappy, talk to you now, boy. Got a small work for you to do. You make a quick 10 G's. What you gonna do for me?
10 G's? Where's that how I do this, boy?
What you doing? Taking your boat, run up the islands, pick up some people and then bring them back here for me. That's all you have to do.
That sounds like human trafficking, boy. That's a serious crime. I can't make that.
Trafficking in human beings is a serious violation of a person's human rights. It violates a person's right to freedom of movement, freedom of choice, freedom of speech, and freedom of identity. It is a heinous crime which affects local, regional, and international peace and security. A victim of human trafficking is subjected to many types of abuse. The crime destroys a person's dignity and self-worth. Victims often feel hopeless, are suicidal, and are stigmatized in their communities. Child victims are deprived of their rights to education, play, and social interactions. They're essentially robbed of their childhood, and that can never be regained once those years have passed. If we do little or nothing to fight against human trafficking in our country, we can face economic sanctions from international agencies and partners. Our country will be losing money. Doing little or nothing to fight against human trafficking will tarnish our country's international image and, most of all, the value we place on human life. Human trafficking is no respecter of persons. Anyone can be a victim. So let us all strive to safeguard human life and dignity in Trinidad and Tobago.
We are the Counter-Trafficking Unit of the Ministry of National Security, Trinidad and Tobago, safeguarding human life.
Eye on Dependency with Garth and Natasha.
Reality radio, at its best, where every life is a biography.
Sundays at 10 a.m. and exclusively on I-95.5 FM.
And streamed live on the Eye on Dependency Facebook page and YouTube channel.
Alright, so thank you for staying with us and thank you for joining us. Remember, you can join us on our Dependency Facebook page and YouTube channel. And of course, sit back and relax, listen to us on the radio. Let's go to that video. Let's go look at our police officers in action. I really enjoyed looking at it. The mace man at Joan Archie's uncle was leading the police band in this. So let's go to that one time, guys. So join us. Remember, we see some of you here. Welcome to those of you on YouTube. Thank you for joining us. And those of you on Facebook, thank you for joining us. And those of you listening on the radio, let's go back to the video. Yes, folks, so you'll get a little more of that before we close, but that was the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service doing their thing in Germany, and it's so nice to see our police officers entertaining an international audience. And remember, every arm of the protective service we speak with this coming in a few Sundays, we will showcase their talent as well, especially their band. So, gentlemen, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Gatt.
Thank you so
Morning,
much.
Mr. Dasher.
Thank you so much
Thank
for
you
joining
having
us. And you all can relax.
Tobago.
Yes, this program is also dedicated to the policemen who, did not make it to this documentary, but just to let you know that you are not forgotten either. Your contribution, this program is also dedicated to you. There are a number of you, and of course, we pay tribute to you as well this morning. Gary just played that 40-second teaser of Code 727 with one of the people we're going to...
The caption was Sadukaran being escorted by able-bodied policeman.
Mr. Errol Noon, was also working, and Mr. George come to replace him.
Like a man used to run plenty, do a lot of exercise. It affects me a lot. It really affects.
PC Allen, good morning. And what inspired you to this? Because I don't think you were even born.
I was just gonna say that. Was he even?
When I look at the regimental numbers and the service of the men, this book here that I will share with you all, this police ain't even dry on his paper yet. But you decided to pay tribute. Tell us about this inspiration. Where did it come from?
Good morning, sir. Good morning to you and Miss Nikisha and the listening and viewing public. Obviously, I know I wasn't born back then. And for those who may have been too young to remember the events of 1990, it was an event that I wanted to find out, basically, what the officers back then who worked on July the 27th, 1990, experienced. I basically just wanted to hear their stories.
Right. And so you approached the necessary folks?
I approached my Corporal Diaz,
right,
senior in charge at the time, and he basically started the ball rolling.
Corporal, when this young police came to you with this idea, you didn't fall him out, right?
No, sir, no, sir. No,
Tell
sir,
us what happened.
Well, sir, good morning. Good morning, Miss Natasha. Good morning, Gat. Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago. Good morning, Miss Archie.
Morning, Miss Archie. Morning.
Gat, the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service sets its strategic plan on a 3-year period.
Right.
And our corporate communications department and audiovisual, of which we are a part, is saddled with this responsibility in ensuring that we have compliance with those strategic goals and priorities. One of the pillars for this 3-year period is the health and wellness of our officers. As a consequence of this, and through discussions, we recognize that there was an untold story that we needed to tell for our officers, for our nation, and to an extent to the world, with the 1990 attempted coup being the first of its kind in the Western Hemisphere as part of history. Yeah. And it was also an opportunity, we believe, to give healing to those officers who would have served with distinction during that dark history of Trinidad and Tobago in 1990.
Right.
Despite the fact that 32 years may have already passed.
So the production, so after you all decided to go forward with this now, who did the production team comprise of? How did you pull these sources together to start the production of this?
Well, the production was developed by the corporate communications and the audiovisual unit.
Right.
We had to utilize the skills and the experience of individual members of staff, and it was in fact a team effort. The core group comprised of course, our Commissioner of Police as the executive producer, the corporate communications manager, who at the time was the Deputy Commissioner of Police Administration, Ms. Joanne Archie, the Senior Corporate Communications Officer, Daniela Johnson, our SDO, Second Division Officer in charge of the audiovisual unit, which is in the person of Sergeant Kerwin Duke, Acting Corporals Kurt Camona and myself, Corporal Diaz, Constables Alan Cunin, Stefan Llewellyn, Adrian Joseph, our WPC present, Miss Nadine Marshall Joseph, and of course, Mr. Darius Allen.
Right, so you all sat together and decide, okay, this could work, we have to do this. So...
And it sounds like a massive undertaking.
Mm-hmm.
What was the journey like from beginning to end, and how long did it take? I mean, what kind of resources did you have to bring to bear to make this a reality?
Well, you can imagine, Natasha, 32 years later, some of those officers would have already passed. Mm-hmm. Some officers even refused to speak to us.
Okay.
Because of the trauma that they would have experienced on that day.
Right.
So our first steps was to do some research. We accessed the National Archives. Also, we went to the various media houses. We reviewed footage both from the local media and from foreign media. And of course, our most precious resource, which was the officers
themselves,
who were involved in the 1990 coup at the Red House and at the police headquarters on that day, who were willing to share those stories both on and off camera.
And there were police officers involved at the other location as well, at TTT,
at
I
TTT.
imagine.
Yes.
And how long did it take to put it together? From start to end?
7 months.
7 months. That's remarkable. I mean, you would think that something of this magnitude would take a little longer to pull everything together. But how have you, I mean, I'm deviating a little bit here, but how have you all dealt with the, as you mentioned, the trauma that some of the officers would have suffered as a result of what they experienced? How have you all used this production or brought other resources to bear to assist those officers?
If you don't mind, but before that, I want to find out though, what was the expected outcome of this production? What you wanted to achieve by doing this? Because, as I said, somebody just posted on Facebook here, they would love to enjoy the Defense Force like this. Maybe let's see the whole comment, because like that person missed the fact that we did 9 parts of the Defense Force's role.
I feel she is referring to the tattoo, you know.
Okay.
I want to believe so.
Right. So, but you know, the expected outcome of this production, because people have long forgotten, as I said, you know, that running joke about police and how they responded to this.
Mm-hmm.
What did you expect to achieve, you know, from doing this?
Who do you think was your audience? Who was your intended audience for this piece?
Well, our number one outcome was that this film would stimulate new conversations. The film, as you would know, Mr. Gat, is not pretty. It's quite gritty.
Yeah.
And there are some thoughts that was shared that we believe we needed to speak to. Our second outcome was that the TTPS story would eventually be told and heard by the nation as to the role and experiences of those officers during the 1990 coup.
Right.
At the Red House, making sure qualified, at both the Red House and at the police headquarters, which was burnt on that day.
Because if you're just joining us, folks, you're listening to Dependency, and we have in studio with us Acting Corporal Diaz and PC Allen, part of the production team for Code 727. And, you know, some people was wondering, and I kind of tried to figure it out, you know, 727, that's the 27th of July, right?
Yes.
Code 727, yeah. So how were you all able to locate now? Now you have to locate the officers and to bring them together. How did you all go about doing that?
Well, we went to the source, Mr. Gat. We contacted the provost, Dr. Simon and Alexis first.
Right. You might call him a Gat, though.
Yeah, okay, Gat. Okay, Gat.
Yeah, be so formal, relax.
We also spoke to the Retirees Association, and they would have put us in contact with persons, and then those officers connected us to other persons who were at the Red House and Old Police Headquarters on that day.
Right. And so...
But to get back to my question, Garth, about how you would have treated with those officers who were reluctant to participate in this documentary, because I think perhaps part of your objective was to help them to deal with, confront the trauma and work through it. But have you, you know, offered assistance to them in any form or fashion to hopefully bring them on board at a later date?
Well, Natasha, you'd understand that was indeed a bit complex.
Yeah.
We understood from the onset that these persons would naturally have some level of trauma having gone through that horrific event. However, many of the interviewees in this process provided some form of relief. Many of those officers actually returned to duty shortly thereafter, having escaped out of the headquarters and from the Red House. So you would understand the level of trauma going through that they would have endured going through that experience.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, I know you folks out there wanted to hold on to the narrative that this didn't happen. You know, the police really, all of them hid. But when I actually heard some of the stories of some of these officers, that what they went through, especially inside Parliament, I was shocked. I really, you know, and have a renewed appreciation for what the police service went through. But we never got that. And that was really unfortunate. But as I say, better late than never. Because reliving this experience must have been traumatic for these officers. No, of course you had to prepare them. How did you all go about doing that?
Well, when we began doing the interviews and we recognized the level of trauma that some of them would have experienced, we realized we would have needed some more assistance. So we actually connected with the Victim and Witness Support Unit through its director, Ms. Corby, and asked for some assistance.
Okay, so right, so those of you just joining us, you're listening to Dependency, and we are speaking with Corporal Diaz and PC Allen from the production team of Code 727. So let's go to that. We have another promo video. Remember, we're giving you a little snippets. We have some trailers for you, with the people giving their testimonies. So Gary, let's go to C and let's take in a bit of this.
I felt a thought on my head. Then I knew I was shot.
There was a loud explosion behind my back.
Folks. PC Allen.
Yes, sir.
Yes, you Right. So give us your take too.
Well, I wanted to speak on in relation to the officers who we reached out to a lot of officers up to today who still refuse to be a part of any relief therapy. They just refuse to be a part of the documentary, a part of the whole process of coming forth, because they are still traumatized at the event in 1990. Because I remember speaking, the first time I spoke to Senior Soup Chandul, because we was doing a previous production, and he was the first officer that said he was shot at in the coup. And that sparked the thoughts between myself and WPC Marshal Joseph. And from that, we started to inquire in relations to getting to know more of the officers who were wrong on that day.
Yeah.
But a lot of them are still traumatized about that day. They just refuse to be a part of it.
I could just imagine reliving, because I remember when we were doing 1970 and 90 with the Defense Force, there were one or two officers who as well felt that same way. They didn't want to relive, especially those who came directly in the line of fire, and they really didn't want to go through that again. So we understand that. But you all were able to convince? Sorry.
No, I was just gonna ask how did you frame the piece? And is it chronological? Does it focus mostly on a retelling of what took place through the eyes of these officers? What are some of the techniques and that you used in terms of putting it together?
The process with us in relation to going about getting the officers, I really think we had a chronological process. We went about starting with Senior Soup Chandul.
Right.
From Senior Soup Chandul, we reached out to Ms. Sampson Brown of the Retirees Association. And from her, she went into her database of officers who still alive up to today. And then from that, we made contacts. And from making contacts with those officers, they put us onto other officers. Dr. Simon Alexis, he was very instrumental also too in giving us contacts locally and internationally. So, and that's how the process basically started. And we call and we have a conversation with them to make them feel comfortable, a pre-interview. And from that conversation, it led into them coming in and going on camera and basically giving us their story. And it was just very
and how was it for you? I mean, interviewing these people, how did you manage to keep your emotions in check, so to speak? Because I mean, this is a difficult story people are telling, and you as the documentalist have to try to keep your documentary hat on, but your police officer hat on as well, and understanding how the profession that you've entered has changed as a result of this incident.
I think we basically drew strength from each other. The team itself, with my corporal spearheaded, and it was a team effort. We really drew strength from each other, and with us being strong together, I think they actually realized and they were comfortable to give their story.
This program is dedicated this morning to the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. Folks, those who were actually there on the ground in 1990. And let me give you, before we go to a break, let me give you some of their quotes. Prince said, I walked up the road saying, Our Father who art in heaven. Muhammad said, the supervisor dispatched us. He dispatched solo MacLeod by the North Gate. That was real disturbing. Why didn't he send me? And MacLeod, of course, was the officer who was at the gate at Central.
First officer.
Yes. And Elder brought a chuckle from the audience with this quote when he said, what do you mean, what happening nowadays? You ain't hearing bullets? They shooting. that sort of lighted up the place. Miguel said, take his uniform and let him go. Roach, what I saw there was life. Whilst we were there shooting, a bird was protecting her young ones. You tend to appreciate life at that stage. And Roach, we heard Roach's name called when we interviewed Purmel. Purmel spoke of Roach, who was the sole police officer with him at Tatil. Right.
Yes. Yeah.
And so Roach was involved in that firefight there at Tatil. It would always be in my mind how easy it is to lose everything that you cherish. I wasn't fearful. It's either I survive or I don't. Officer Babulal, load up what firearms we had at the sentry post. Joseph, when I get the call to come to this interview, it was like a reawakening of something I tried to suppress. And we'll speak about that when we come back. You're listening to Dependency, folks, right here on I-95.5 FM, live on the Dependency Facebook page and YouTube channel. Those of you on YouTube, please remember to like and subscribe. Click on that button so that when we go live, you will always be notified. And we have more to come. Let's go to a break. We'll be back with Corporal Diaz and PC Allen of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. We'll be back. Stay right there.
The sex trafficking thing is a serious thing, you know, boy.
Sex trafficking? I thought it was only human trafficking it have.
But what do you mean?
No serious thing, boy. Where you get that from? I don't know about human trafficking, you know about sex trafficking.
So how can you spot and identify perpetrators and children who are victims of trafficking? Many victims who are children do not look like under 18 years old. Child victims often move escorted around alone or in small groups. They also live in shared and even packed rooms and have very little clothing and belongings. Child victims are often seen with adults who are not their parents, their relatives, or their caregivers. Migrant children are often unaccompanied and separated from their parents. Child victims are often engaged in work that is not suitable for children. They are often deprived of their freedom to go to school, to play, and to enjoy being a child. Perpetrators have unexplained sources of income and possessions. They are businessmen and businesswomen running legitimate and illegitimate businesses. Perpetrators may appear to be the victim's friend, boyfriend, close relative, or employer.
We are the counter-trafficking unit of the Ministry of National Security, Trinidad and Tobago, safeguarding human life.
Don't become a headline. Doing construction, picking fruit or trimming trees? Keep bamboo rods, ladders, scaffolding, roof beams, oversized material of any type, and body parts at least 15 feet from electricity poles and lines. Before doing any type of work close to overhead lines or to the point of connection to your home, and before digging where there are underground lines, contact T&Tech for a temporary disconnection so you can work safely. T&Tech, the power to make it work.
Finally, welcome relief comes in the form of a scientific-based program that shows us how to manage through the tough, current challenges. Called Habitalism. It features best-selling author on positivity and happiness, Dr. Tal Ben-Shahar, integrated with the award-winning Intangence methodology of Ross. Visit habitalism.me to register now for this free life-transforming program endorsed by the United Nations established University for Peace. Gifted by Guardian Group. Live easy.
The caption was Sadukaran being escorted by able-bodied policeman.
Mr. Erroldy Noon, he was also working, and Mr. George come to replace him.
That time I used to run plenty, do a lot of exercise. It affects me a lot. It really affects.
Thank you for staying with us. You're listening to Dependency. Thank you if you're just joining us. We are discussing the events of 1990, the police service, Code 727. We have part of the production team in studio with us, PC Darius Allen and Acting Corporal, you pronounce it for Antonio Diaz. I don't want to pronounce your first name.
Yeah, that's right.
Dana?
Antonio is right. Yeah, Dana is the first name. Dana is
right.
first.
So, and they're in studio with us this morning to discuss the police officer's role, the stories that you did not hear. As Chandul says, as we turned into Sackville Street, a barrage of gunfire was heard, and the vehicle would have gotten some impact with some projectiles. You didn't know that, right? All you heard is that there were no police officers around at all. During the making of this documentary, gentlemen, you said you saw officers breaking the fourth wall and tearing up. How did the team treat with that? Tell us about that. And explain to the audience the meaning of breaking the fourth wall.
Mr. Galt, before we go into breaking of the fourth wall, I just want to chime in on one of the stories that actually stood out to me. As you mentioned, Mr. Chandul.
Right.
Was hearing our colleagues who were, just to add to it, trapped in a cell while the building was burning. They slept in that cell whole night until morning. So from the time the event started on the 27th into the 28th, they were trapped in that burning building and refused to come out until the next day.
No, that speaks a lot about the building itself too.
Well, yes, it does.
Because, no, when you look at the material that the building was constructed, I mean, that is old school construction, right?
Yeah.
And because I heard one officer describe how the bullets were just ricocheting off the building.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, well, Mr. Gart. It's Gats.
Before we leave, you'll get it. You'll get it right. You'll get it right before we leave.
I'm feeling like short man this morning. We just try to lighten it up, folks. This is kind of heavy. Go ahead.
Well, when we speak to breaking the fourth wall, there's a film term used where the person on the screen actually appears as though they are now interacting with the viewer, so that there were a couple instances when we were interviewing the officers and they actually began to get very emotional. We purposefully left some of that in the production so that our viewing public wouldn't just see, well, all right, the TTPS or the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service put together this fancy film or whatever, but they'll actually feel as though they are right there in the room with us at that moment, experiencing the emotional outbursts of the officer. So that is why we left purposefully some of those interactions that you would see on the film.
Right. As I said, when I saw it, I too, because I remember McAlpin because McAlpin, when I was an instructor, a PTI instructor, he was a PTI course. I'm hoping it's the same McAlpin. And you could see he was struggling. He struggled for a long time to let it out. Quoting him here, when you look out from the canteen, you see the front gate of headquarters, it was on fire. And, for the uninitiated, these events could have been really, really traumatic for them. And you had to actually think on your feet at that point. Even listening to, what's her name, is not, I don't want to mistake the person's name, who spoke about Mr. Dukaran's tie.
Miss Ward.
Miss Ward.
It's all Ward.
Right. She had the tie with her.
Yeah.
Now, this is something that, countries around the world would actually preserve and put that in a glass case.
That's true.
Because it's part of the story that she described how one of the insurgents reached, because like the tie straps they had wasn't doing the job. So they reached with Mr. Dukaran's tie, who was next to them, and just pulled off his tie and tied her with it.
Yeah.
And I saw Mr. Dukaran in the audience last week, and the expression on his face, you could see he choked up when he heard that.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, Gat,
mm-hmm.
we had a previewing of the film 1 week before the 27th of July, where we brought in all our interviewees. We invited them to come to view the film, and we also invited them to have a discussion with our victim and witness support officers as well. And I remembered being in the room and thinking to myself that we are a lot closer to each other than we recognize, because just that story alone, Mr. Dukaran being a minister of government at the time, and you have this officer, a woman police constable, and it's like 32 years later, she still has this tie that they would have used to tie. And it's like, sometimes when you really think about it, is how much closer we are as human beings and as a nation, that we don't recognize it sometimes.
Yeah.
That is true. Because experiences like this tend to do that. And I mean, you have connections with people that you probably may never see or interact with again in life, but that experience remains with you. It stays with you. It's amazing that she kept the tie and preserved it. I don't know if did she and Mr. Dukaran ever interact in those 32 years between the events? Do you know?
They met once, and then he couldn't remember her exactly, and he couldn't remember the events.
Right.
But she reminded him that I still have the tie.
Wow.
Yeah, so
we have some comments on Facebook, Natasha. You want to?
Yes.
You want to share some of them?
Someone, Alison says, have you all ever thought about doing a diorama or on display at the museum, or even better at the St. James Barracks, to preserve the history for posterity, and also to encourage visits from tourists. And that is something that Garth and I have discussed before, having visited the Toronto Police Museum, which is, a fantastic look at the history of Toronto Police. And a documentary like this, to me, could be the start of some of that documentation of the history of the police service, and contribute to, an eventual museum of the TTPS history.
Well, the police service actually has its own museum.
Right, you see, there you go.
Yeah,
Didn't even know that.
Yeah, if you look at the backdrop of where the officers were interviewed, you would see muskets and cork hats and some,
so that is where the interviews were done.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, very appropriate location, I felt. That so the backdrop too was nice, was well chosen, was well placed, and I want to congratulate you all on that. Believe me, those who attended that documentary screening, I'm sure they remember it to this day. It has not left their mind. It hasn't left my mind. And even I met one or two sailors, like Blackie was there too, Miss Archie's husband, and, I think Blackie real mischievous, because Blackie say every 27th of July he used to be ponging Joanne, because he was in the Coast Guard, right?
Yeah.
He said, the police take up the clothes and run.
Yeah.
They say when he sat there, and we both agreed at the end that this is a story that needs to be let out there. So, folks, we're just giving you a teaser here this morning.
Yep. Because
we want you to understand our officers, our police officers, they were affected. And not to mention their families. Because if I tell you, Mr. Richardson went home to a wake. He went home to his family, holding a wake for him, because his regimental number was found among the rubble, among the ashes.
Yes.
So they thought he was dead. So they started. So imagine he walking into his own wake,
Yeah.
And he made us laugh too when he spoke about a police officer who, and we have plenty of them in the middle, who was jumpy, bullets flying left, right, and center. He a man line up signing for arms and ammunition. This is only when Mr. Pigott showed us, Mr. Pigott said, just give the people the wrongs and the ammo, let them go and fight. You want people to sign, but it have soldiers like that. There are officers like that who, by the book, they're in business. You taking a gun here, you're signing for it.
Burning down around you. But you're still going by the book. I mean,
so, and Mr. Richardson dramatized that really nice, and so the documentary has its moment. It has its ups and downs. How did that feel to inside the room when you all were doing it?
The only way to answer that question, Gart, is to say that I feel proud, or I felt proud, and I still feel proud being a police officer and being in the room with some of these officers and hearing how they would have had to be heroic in making certain decisions.
Right.
And I also felt sad as well, knowing that for all these years that, we were not able to really get this story out, but thank God that it was able to come out effectively as it is coming out now.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we have a couple of more questions on Facebook, if you guys could answer. Denzel asks if you interviewed any officer from the ERU of the GB, which was based at Silot at the time.
Well, we didn't because of the focus of our of the production, which was what would have occurred at the time that the coup started at the headquarters and at the Red House.
Right.
We have not as yet, and I'm saying as yet because our commissioner,
he was a part two.
I want to say he asked. I'm saying he asked, right? But he gave instructions.
It was not order.
That we do a part two.
Yeah.
Where we will be able to tell even further stories of some of the experiences of officers who would have been external to those core areas that we focused on for Code 727.
Definitely.
I agree.
Because, even civilians, in fact, Suzanne says she is getting emotional. Suzanne is my sister, by the way. And on that day, my father was working on Sackville Street, and we went to pick him up. And that was literally in the middle of everything that was going on. And it was very traumatic for us as civilians, too, to be, bullets flying and, we're trying to rescue our father. And she is remembering what took place on that day as well. So, in fact, a lot of people, not just the police service, and it's good that the police service is telling its own story, not allowing it to be told for them. But as you say, the part two can include a wider periphery of officers and their families and civilians who were impacted by this event, because it I don't even think we have as a country begun to really do a deep dive into how all of our psyches were affected by these events.
Yes.
Even persons like the PC here who were not alive, and his life is still impacted by those events.
Now, this person who's on screen here now, Benton Williams, you would have heard Officer Tong made a comment. He called a name, and he's a soldier, or a former soldier. And he was one of the people who luckily was there to help save Dong. With Pierre, because he and Pierre, Officer Pierre, right,
from the special branch,
and we'll get to discussing the special branch too, because they had one or two officers from the special branch in the interview, and
who in Parliament?
Yes. And remember, one of the questions I have always asked was, why did they let the insurgents reach to the Prime Minister? Because their role is to protect the Prime Minister. But when I heard the officer, I don't know if you remember his name? Maurice.
Not giving away too much. But
not giving away too much. But when I heard him describe it, I said, because as he's put it, they were also trained to use common sense. And
Pilgrim.
Right. And now you will see in the documentary, and we've seen that clip floating around many times around 1990, one of the insurgents was beating someone on the ground with the nozzle of their rifle. Viciously beating him. That was the officer. No, it's in the documentary. I get to realize that was the officer who was getting all that licks. I thought was a politician they were beating, but actually it was the officer who was on top of the Prime Minister at the time, protecting the Prime Minister.
Okay.
Listen, folks, I know we're teasing you all here this morning.
No, everybody wants to know when can they get to see this.
Don't worry, you all will get the announcement soon. Don't worry. But I am serious. You all need to hear this. If you're just joining us, you're listening to Dependency, and we have in studio PC Darius Allen and Corporal Antonio Diaz, who they're part of the production team. Also, we have the photographer here with us as well. And is really, really touching that this was so important that the victim and witness support had to be called in. You want to go deeper into the role that they played with these officers?
Nice you.
Yes, Mr. Yes, God. Well, when we recognize the level of trauma, we contacted Ms. Kobe. And as you would understand, that a lot of these departments, they may not have readily known what we were doing and what was occurring with the project. So the first thing Ms. Kobe wanted was to view the project and see what it's about or whatever. When she came at a team of about 4 persons, and after they viewed it, they were so stunned and shocked as well. We never heard these before. We didn't even know that it had officers retired and still some of them still performing duties that were so badly affected. So they instantly got into action. They formulated a team of victim and witness support officers, and they began to engage with through us to some of those officers who appeared who seemed to need the extra assistance in terms of dealing with the trauma.
Gary, go back to video B. For those of you who just joining us, this is what we're discussing, code 727. And we'll have more for you next Sunday, please God. But those of you that see a lot more, you joined on YouTube. And so we're going to show you again just a brief snippet of what to expect from the documentary Code 727. Go ahead, Gary.
99, hey! The caption was Sadukaran being escorted by able-bodied policeman.
Mr. Errol known he was also working, and Mr. George come to replace him.
That time I used to run plenty, do a lot of exercise. It affects me a lot. It really affects.
All right, folks. Dependency. We're back. I'm listening to in the promo there, speaking about being active and then losing a leg. let's talk about that a bit. Did you all? What about the families? Did you all ever interact with any of the family members to see, especially the family of Tong, BPC Tong, because he lost a leg. He was shot in his leg, and he gave that test without giving away too much, where he had to drag himself from, and how did he cope with that and his family, especially the family? Did you all ever get to speak to any member of the family?
We didn't speak to any member directly. I think we spoke to, it's his daughter on the night of the 27th.
Right. How did she?
But it left an impact on her. She was very proud to know that what her dad went through, but also she was very hurt, to say, because it was a lot of emotions for her, because to know that her dad lived that. He went through, he was shot at numerous times. He had bullets all in his... not to give away too much.
Yeah, but he was sprayed.
Yeah.
Let me just say.
Yeah. And he survived. But Mr. Tong's spirit and his spirit, I won't say personality, his spirit is a very, very...
strong one.
Yeah, it's grace. Grace. He's a person, he just blessed. Honestly speaking, he blessed. Grace, I would just call him Grace.
Right.
So Tong have a lot of grace. He just totally blessed.
Because he had other injuries that he didn't know he had.
No.
And that is Gat, one of the unknown stories in the service, because a lot of persons, I mean, through the news or whatever, some persons may have known that, all right, the officer was injured or whatever, but to understand that it's not just, okay, an officer was injured, but the impact on not just on his life, but on his livelihood and on his family life as well.
Yeah. The mental torture. To know that after being so active in the service, you now have to be home with one leg. We'll speak to that when Ms. Corby gets here next Sunday.
Yes.
That mental torture and what police officers go through and what their families go through with them. Because people have to realize too that when someone joins the police service, their family joins the police service too. Indirectly, what happens to them affects. Every time a police officer leaves home, the family not sure to see him.
Yeah, that's true.
In the evening.
That's true.
And I can't help but continue to say thank you for your service. Thank you very much for wanting to do this. Tash?
Yeah, I concur with those sentiments, and Denzel, who asked about the ERU, he has a follow-up comment, and he says that officers from the ERU responded and reached to the steps of the Red House, where they engaged with the insurgents and retrieved a Ruger rifle and some ammunition. They were also able to assist a special branch officer who was shot. So again, that's just to show, the extent of how you have to widen your net of interviews for the part two.
Yeah, and I'm quite sure, Natasha, as we delve further into the history of our service through that period, because as much as our story dealt with the initial happenings at around 6 o'clock on that Friday, 27th of July, there was still the other things that was happening in and around not just Trinidad but Tobago as well, and we may very well find that some of these stories may be so shocking to some of our citizens.
And form part of the puzzle, the entire puzzle. And we just have little snippets now, but when we start to put the whole puzzle together. So what are the plans for the film going forward? Now that you've had the launch, what are the plans for the film? How are people gonna see it? Where is it gonna go?
Well, Natasha, what we want most of all is for the nation to view it and to have a better understanding of the police's story in that dark history of 1990. At present, we are currently working on a couple of things, and very soon, probably as soon as next week when we come for the second part of this interview, you all will hear what we intend to do going forward for the nation of Trinidad and Tobago.
Right. It would be nice to be able
potentially our international audience,
right?
As
yes,
well.
Because I see in film festivals, I see in theaters, movie theaters for this film. I haven't seen it, but I mean I am reliably informed by Mr. Gart that it is theater worthy.
That's right.
And definitely in terms of the local context, it is definitely something that every citizen should see.
Definitely.
And for me, if I may chime in, I would love for this documentary to be in every school, or young people like myself and younger officers who not even in the service as yet, to know what officers go through and what the officers who were there on the 27th of July 1990, what role they play in society on that day.
Yep. And how this incident impacted on the service, growth and development going forward, and how it has changed, how it has. I don't know if you looked at those kind of broader issues in this documentary in terms of how the service has changed to meet the new demands of these threats that occur. I don't know. Did you touch on that in this film?
Well, because as the corporate communications department, Natasha, we have to fulfill those strategic goals that we have. Now, it's not to say that our service is just myopic in terms of we just focusing on strategic goals for this 3-year period, but is that the strategic pillar of the health and wellness of our officers is a continual thing, so that you may find, like right now we are speaking about Code 727 and dealing with the trauma of our officers in 1990, but there are a lot of other issues that as the corporate communications delve deeper into the history of our service, that we may find that we find other things that we probably just left unspoken or unheard of, and you never know, eventually we bring these things to the fore, and it's all towards the development and upgrading of our service towards our nation.
Because Alison Salandi said, and she's out there in New York actually, she was saying that another thing you have to revitalize is because she's saying that the police museum is one of the best kept secrets.
Yes.
So I think that's something that now that things have opened up again, you all could have people. And that tie, Mr. Dukaran's tie, must be included in that museum.
And let people pay to go in there too.
Yes.
Don't make it a freeness. We like freeness here. Let people pay to go in there and review what the collection that you have at that museum.
And as Leon said, all the recruits need to see it. Any plans to have the recruits see it?
We're working on it.
Yes,
they should.
We're having a lot of discussions right now.
But I can imagine, with the making of this documentary, and we like to, when we open up the lines, we like to hear some of you officers. Are you happy now that this documentary was done? Because I know how it felt to hear, the public making fun of the service, and the service never really had a chance to respond, because I said we did 1970, we did 1990, and although we interviewed 1 or 2 police officers in that regard, but it was never this. It wasn't this deep. It wasn't what I saw at that screening. And again, I would like to congratulate all of you for coming up with this. Let me give you some more quotes. Remember, folks, this is part 1. For the month of August, we're paying tribute to all arms of the protective service, and we've started with the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service here this morning. And we are really happy to be part of this history-making event, this initiative by the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. Officer James here said, and I'm reading from the Code 727 book, the Muslims are firing at the building, not us. Police officers are not firing. But the information that we have is that the Muslimin fired that they were hearing. Ward said, we had to handcuff you because you were trained. Now, this is the same lady, same WPC, explaining what the insurgent told her. We have to handcuff you because you're trained. This tie that I'm holding here belongs to Mr. Winston Dukaran, and she had a tie on her lap when she was doing the interview. She preserved that tie, Natasha. And I'm saying, as sooner or later, you all may have to pry it from her hands and put it in a showcase in the museum, because that is part of the police service history.
Pry is the correct word, because
because the way she had that tie holding on her lap, you all have to maybe have to pay her to get that tie.
I mentioned it a couple of times. Miss Ward, if you could sign the tie and hand it over, she said no. So she's listening. She's listening. So Miss Ward, the nation would like it to please sign the tie and
Miss
we'll
Ward,
preserve it for you.
Miss Ward,
If
please.
it's the one thing you do for your country, you need to.
Or if you want, you can leave it in the well. They can get it afterwards. But please, that tie must be in the police service museum, and I hope we can get a picture of that tie to show the country next week, please God. Or her, that little snippet that she had. Glenda said, if there was a quietness, you weren't aware of it. And that's why I'm hearing loud explosions. Something happens that, sometimes you just see people lips moving. Kato, WPC Kato, as I unlatched the door and stepped out, she stepped right in front of a gun. I won't tell you what that was. Tony, I recognized the then AG Isidore Smart. He said, "Officer, get me to Trin City." I said, "Sir, it would not be wise to go to Trin City. I will take you to my home." Now, he was the Attorney General at the time.
At the time, yes.
And from what he described, he was a little disoriented. And he asked him for money for $3 to go to Trin City.
Travel.
Yeah.
He was going to travel?
Yes. The Attorney General.
Wow.
But tell you, only this documentary well deep, You all don't understand why I'm talking about it. You have to see it. When you look out from the canteen, you see the front gate of the headquarters. It was on fire. That's from McAlpin. Pilgrim, who is you? Pilgrim say, police. We didn't run. Part of our training is to use common sense. Common sense. I remember that.
Yes, Mr. McAlpin.
Pilgrim. Pilgrim when he
Pilgrim.
Yes.
Pilgrim in the Red House. Yes.
In the Red House.
Yeah.
He said, police, do what you want.
Yeah.
This is my job here. I doing my job. And this I say, some of the people, other arms of law enforcement, who laughed at this when they heard these stories. I remember Sam Major listening right now, Barbell, and he told us too that if you holding on a position and you see 8 men coming to you with automatic rifle, you're not going to get up and play Rambo. You will blend in too, because it's all about common sense, preservation of life. You don't have enough ammo to take on a section of men, and if fire coming at you, of course you would blend in too. So, but we never thought of that. It was just this joke about the police service run and hide, boy, nobody with them, a bunch of cowards.
And people seem to forget too. I mean, when your headquarters, imagine if Tetron was under attack.
Yeah.
What would take place then? I mean, this is the police headquarters was attacked, was under attack, and.
Now, continue to remember that when Kelshal told the story when the Coast Guard boat went down to Tetron and how they opened fire on them in Tetron barracks.
Yes, and everybody scrambled. It was a scramble. Everybody was ducking and running for cover. So that is the same experience, and I'm sure.
But God, Natasha, let me share something with you all. When we were like about 50% through or through with the editing of the project, one of our officers, when he viewed that early initial stage of the edit and saw where we were going with the story, he asked a question. He said, how is it that we never really thought of that the police service had the most loss in 1990? Because they attacked the Red House, they attacked headquarters, and they attacked TTT.
Yes.
But our headquarters was burned to the ground.
Correct.
So that is part of the history that we helped, or we are hoping to push to the general public to see that yes, our officers were injured, but our headquarters, which is our heartbeat, more or less,
Yes.
was burnt to the ground during that event in 1990.
And the headquarters was never reoccupied after that event, was it?
No, it
was
is.
It
It
was.
is,
It
it
currently
was
is, but
refurbished
it took a while to. I mean, even re-entering that space after it was refurbished and stuff. That in and of itself would have been,
Well, if I probably
significant-
was surprised if I let you know that there were some officers who had to return to work
Next
at
day.
the headquarters the next day.
Next day.
Hmm.
There were officers in that building the next day.
Wow. Smelling all that.
While they were burning flesh outside and this smell of...
Lord Father.
No, man. This folks, if you're just
That
joining
is-
us, you're listening to
Next
Independency. Hang on, Gary, just now. And we are speaking with Corporal Diaz, PC Allen, part of the production team of Code 727, and also in studio with us as well is WPC Nadine Marshall Joseph. I the more we discuss this, is the more I'm happy that you all did this. Seriously. The public needs to hear this. And those of you who just joining us, Gary, one more time just for them. You play video C and then video B. This is what you missed, but we have the gentleman and lady in studio here with us. Let's go back to the trailer, and then next week I'll beg them to give us some more so we can share with you.
I felt a thought on my leg. Then I knew I was shot.
There was a loud explosion behind my back.
The caption was Sadukaran being escorted by able-bodied policeman.
Mr. Errol known he was also working, and Mr. George come to replace him.
That time I used to run plenty, do a lot of exercise. It affects me a lot. It really affects.
Arjun Singh, bullets were coming through the special branch and they were targeting the special branch from the road. Pierre, on entering my car to put the food, that's when I heard a loud explosion at the gate by the sentry. Richardson, I proceed to draft the report. He signed it and he told me to carry it now. Morris said I paraded and dispatched these officers. Kingston from 1:30, that's WPC Kingston, from 1:30 was corporal, she's a corporal. From 1:30 my sons were calling me, Mommy, you're not coming for us? All this is in the documentary, folks. All this I'm speaking about here, it's in the documentary. Now, gentlemen, this after reliving all this experience, what is next for this film? What's next you have on the agenda? Just don't give away too much, but tell us still.
I kind of asked that question already.
You asked it,
Yes.
Sorry,
they
I
were
wasn't
very
here.
cagey with their response.
Oh, they were cagey?
Yes.
Okay, well, I'll leave that alone then.
So,
but
we
as a
have to
young
wait and
officer,
see. Yes.
Alan, how you feel as a young officer having to be part of this project?
I feel proud to be a member of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. I feel proud to be serving at this current time. I know that I made the right choice, the right career choice.
Right.
And I would like to thank the Commissioner of Police and his executive and the team for all the assistance that they gave us. But I'd like to thank the Commissioner of Police for giving young officers the opportunity. Copy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Corporal?
Well, I'm not such a young officer.
I know. Don't worry, I plan to reveal your age here just now. Don't feel to get away. How you feel though?
But I want to echo the sentiments of, I have always been a proud police officer. I mean, if you ask anyone, I will always say, listen, our service is not a perfect one, but we are striving for perfection. And when we would have screened the project to the commissioner, he was so pleased. You see how you are beaming, Gat? Our commissioner, I remember sitting in his office and watching the commissioner. Beamer was like, hey, listen, and then that is when he asked, I'll say it again, and that is when he asked or gave instructions to us to, extend the story further. So.
No, I'm happy for him too, that this would come under his watch, and to go back to some of the codes, Raphael said I asked him to go with me back upstairs to locate Mr. Addison and Mr. Cato. Maurice, I was not supposed to be in the Red House on that day. Thong said it had a spouting pouring water. I see my blood going down in the water. I asked God to help. I asked God for help to send somebody. Let's take some calls, folks. And I'll share with you the team here. They have the profile of the team members here, starting with the commissioner. The number is 622-3937. And if you're just joining us, you're listening to Dependency. Remember, you still can join us on the EYE on Dependency Facebook page or YouTube channel of the same name. And Commissioner of Police Acting MacDonald Jacob, 41 years service. These stories, as told by our brave officers, have rightfully been memorialized. And in this documentary, so the generation that came after the harrowing events of 1990 will know how close we came to losing our cherished democracy. I'm honored to head an organization comprised of men and women who stand in defense of our liberties, and to know that the unsung heroes of this tragedy are finally being recognized for their bravery and resolute duty to country and fellow man. Hello, good morning. Hello?
I think PC Allen has a
morning.
special...
Hello, good morning, God. Good morning, Natasha.
Morning.
I'm calling from Arima.
Welcome, Arima.
And listening to this documentary, you and the officer speaking, I am feeling I had to sit down and listen again. I said, but it is happening to me again. That morning, my daughter went to TTT. And when she came back and I saw this, I said, Lord, thank you she didn't go in the afternoon. And I am reliving 1990, Gata, Natasha, and Mr. Officer. I am feeling my spine chilling because I love my country. And when I saw what they did to the Prime Minister, my heart will bleed until now. And the officer, as you said, who saved him a lot more than what he was getting, he have to be blessed, and he should get I don't know what kind of medal, but he will be rewarded from the highest heaven. Thank you all ever so much. I'm so emotional. Thank you
for calling. And as you said that, I remember the officer who the insurgent was beaten. That was caught on camera. Now, folks, if you know the texture and the weight of a gun barrel, a rifle barrel that is, especially one that was just fired. So he was getting hit with a hot barrel while protecting the Prime Minister, That is your call dedication to duty. Hello, 622-3937. Good morning.
Morning.
Morning. Turn off your radio first, please.
Turn off your radio, please.
Listening to your program on this code 727. I was part of that 1990 thing. I am a retired sergeant of police.
Okay.
In Tobago, and I really would have liked to get into this program and give some of my experiences of what went on there. My story is a bit long, and I don't know or how much time you all have to listen to me.
Well, what about, I would think we should do better. What about if you share your contact information with the officers here and they will get in touch with you? We don't want you to give away anything here now. What about that? You think that would be...
I will like to give you all my number so that you all can contact me so that I can give you all the information.
Please do. Please do. Take it off. You could...
You want to take it off the air?
Just now, Gary.
Yes.
Just now, Gary will speak with you.
Okay.
Yeah, Gary will. Gary will speak with you now and give you the. You give Gary the number, and Officer Allen and Diaz here will contact you for sure, because I'm sure as they were mandated by the commissioner to do another part, you will be included in that because Tobago. He said from Tobago.
Yes.
So thank you very much for touching base. And as I said, you officers out there, this program is dedicated to you all. You know, your dedication to duty. You who are serving right now as well, you know, should have an appreciation for the shoulders that you stand on right now.
And we want to say a special good morning to Miss Judith Allen, who has sent her love for her son, who was on the program this morning. Good morning, Miss Judith.
Good morning, Miss Judith.
And we give thanks for you and your son.
Right. So the commissioner, 41-year service, right? So let's go on. Manager, Corporate Communications Unit, retired ACP Joanne Archie, 40-year service. The retelling of this experience by the officer brought tears to my eyes. I have no doubt that it will be similarly emotional experience for other officers of the service as they recall their own personal experience in 1990. I wish to applaud the Acting Commissioner of Police and the CCU for making this production possible and honoring the officers in such a fitting manner. It has been long overdue. That's Joan Archie, who has 40 years service. Senior Corporate Communications Officer Daniela Jones, 11 years service. I was happy to be able to help these brave officers finally share their story with the world. I hope that this documentary will serve as a fertile ground for further discussions and exploration of the events of 1990 from the perspective of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, and ultimately learn from those dark days and the experience. And from Sergeant Kerwin Duke, 24 years service. As the overall and general supervisor on this project, I was delighted to lend my full support standing behind the production team while assisting in this effective and efficient management of available resources. The dedication and heroism of the officers during such a horrific experience has inspired me and impacted my life, as now continued service with pride means even more to me.
And also, I would hope that you guys would go through this Facebook Live and the chat, because some of the commenters I'm sure you might want to get in touch with, like this gentleman, Peter Beaumont, who says, who would have determined those persons who were deserving of medals? There are many of us who were in strategic positions and did not have contact with our family for days. So I guess he is an officer who was in that situation and again could form part of the crew of interviewees for part 2.
622-3937. Hello, good morning.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Morning.
And all of you.
Morning.
I have an interesting perspective that I'd like to share with you, right? So, I was the first intake of police trainees after 1990. I was in that batch 1 of 91. Many of my fellow trainees were SRPs who had served during the coup. In fact, it was as a reward that the Commissioner of Police then, Mr. Bernard, allowed many of them to come across. In fact, our batch and the batch after us contained many SRPs who had served during the time of the coup and so on. And my perspective is that in 1990, the year before I entered the police service, when the incidents happened, being relatively young and having experienced the privations of structural adjustment, I felt a sort of vindication from the actions that were taken by the Muslims, right? So I was young, idealistic, and in the phase of being an angry young man. However, in my 6 months interaction and training with my brothers and sisters who had served during the time of the insurrection, I got a new appreciation of how close we came to the brink and what it means to serve and the sacrifice made by people. And I'm glad to hear that there'll be another installment, and I hope that some of the stories of my batches that they shared with us, those of us who were civilians, because that was the good thing about our batch. We had the perspective of people who had already served, and we had the two most junior squads comprised mainly of civilians, right? Who would have had a perspective of 1990 from that end of it, being home, you know what I mean, being going through the privations of the state of emergency and that kind of thing. And our batch is unique. I mean, a lot of my batches still serving now, many in senior positions and senior supervisory positions. I just wanted to say that, you know, the thing about life that is concerned is that you, because of experiences, you could move from one perspective and one appreciation and ideology, like I did, to another one because of interactions with people who went through real trauma and strife. I just thought I'd share that with you guys. But it's a great project, and I always say that what we did after 1990 wasn't a commission of inquiry. You know, we needed a Truth and Reconciliation Commission, a la what Mr. Mandela did in South Africa, and to bring about healing without feelings of guilt and wanting to persecute people. I think if we had gone that route, we might have evolved so beautifully as a country. Take care.
WhatsApp message here. Good
Thank you very
morning.
much.
Looking on, I'm the wife of one of the wives of an officer who survived. I was scared. My children were babies. My husband came home Monday night with a beard. Unfortunately, McLeod died. My husband was traumatized for a very long time.
I appreciate that last caller.
Yes.
His perspective, and also, you know, the intersection of persons who were with the Muslimin, because there were a lot of people who were supporting what they did, and for him to make that transition, and to join the police service at that critical time, that's a unique.
There's an officer who took part, actually said, thanks Mr. Diaz and Mr. Allen and team for giving me the opportunity to vent. So that's an officer. Yeah. And hearing the experience of the retired fellow officers made me appreciate my police service in an even greater way. I'm grateful having been given the opportunity to take part in this production. What stood out for me is the misrepresentation of our officers for those many years as being afraid on July 27, 1990. Our officers were dedicated and heroic on that day. And this is from Corporal Diaz, who has 24 years service. PC Adrian Joseph, 8 years service. It was a humbling experience to meet officers who endured immense trauma, but were given an opportunity to speak to an extent, relieve themselves of 32 years of pain. From being a part of this production, I've learned to always be prepared mentally, emotionally, and physically for anything to happen, and never let your guard down. 622-3937. Good morning. Welcome to Independency.
Hello, good morning.
Morning.
Good morning. I listen to this program, and I try not to call in the radio program, but this morning I had to call in because all the segments already had last week, I didn't get through. But it had two sides of a coin, and I feel I should examine the other side too. Because the insurrection wasn't a bunch of people who went to sleep last night and get up the next day and mash up the country. It wasn't like that. Go back and do some research on what led up to that. And you see, what another program I want you to do too is one on police brutality.
All right, caller. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Hello, good morning. 622-3937. Hello.
Hi, good morning.
Morning.
Great show, great job by the police officers. However, South, I'm from South. In 1990, I was an MTS officer attached to San Fernando General. And I think it should be mentioned that we also played a role in the coup. I was on the promenade, guarding the promenade, along with some city corporation officers, Fraser, and police officer Hines, and young police officers just out of training. And I was there with them without any firearm. And we had to man Harris Promenade. And all the threats, all the stuff happening, shots going off, a lot of things happen in South. And Mr. Jacob was in South, Mr. Archie was in South. At the time, Mr. Nelson and Mr. Taylor was in charge of CID. I remember that clearly. You know, so there's a southern part of the thing that we need to understand, because information that we were getting at the time, we weren't really clear on exactly. We heard men coming in trucks from Rio Claro, men coming from all the way over, and even one of the insurgents who was at TTT, right? And I would love to get the answer to that. Who was at TTT was held in San Fernando.
Officer, is it possible you could give us your number so the officers here can contact you?
Sure.
Gary, you want to take the number? Please hold on, right?
Yeah.
Thank you very much. We have another comment from Facebook. So Archibald says there's a retired senior police officer by the name of Ulrich Prescott. He's an assistant superintendent of police. You should get to know his very interesting side to how the officers in the Western Division had to deal with it. So that's another perspective. I mean, again, you're going to have Ulrich Prescott. He's a senior
Prescott. That name sounds very familiar. If I think he calls the radio station from time to time. That is the. I remember if it's the same person. And this is on a side note now, and we'll deal with that before we close, where Jerry Richard had to actually ask our national instrument to play the anthem at the games.
Oh.
When he was one of the officers, remember when we had Independence one Sunday evening, he called in and said that same thing.
Yes.
That we should, Trinidad and Tobago should ensure that, and we're talking about police, and he's a former police officer, and he called into the radio station and said, why is it that our national anthem not being played by the steel pan overseas?
Correct.
And they did it once and then they stopped. Now Richards had to put us on blast on national TV, international TV.
Yes.
And everybody this morning, he got the pan to play. I seen boy, look. Anyhow, let's take another call. Good morning.
Good morning to the Sinclairs and to the person
morning,
in the studio.
Corporal Diaz and PCL.
Good morning.
Yes, good morning, officers. I have not seen the documentary or the trailer, and I obviously have no reason to doubt what was said. At the time of the coup, I was head of the security of the telephone company, and I was a direct link to the police in terms of their units. What distressed me was that about 2 to 3 weeks before the coup, I was in direct link with the, what's that unit called again with the police? The intelligence unit. And I informed them of a linkage that was going on between the Muslimin and foreign phone calls. I gave them all the telephone contacts, all the information, and told them something was brewing. I even secured for them where the source of the information was. They chose to ignore me. I eventually took that to the army. They also did not do anything about it. So when the coup actually took place, I had to call the man who was in charge, was not the man in charge, the one who was second in charge of the intelligence unit of the police. I don't even remember his name. I know it was a Latin name, Spanish name. I don't remember his name properly. I think he was from up Trinidad also. Anyhow, I had to call him back and tell him, look, I had pointed out to you all the vulnerable points in the telecommunication in the country. And only then he said, oh, yes, sir. I now remember. Now, you have to understand that during a coup, the sections of the community that they would want to be able to, that is very vulnerable, other than the police, the army, would be the telecommunication services and the radio. I was the link with Dennis McCormick because there was another senior, as it was called, telco officer, who was liaising with me and told me to tell Mr. McCormick that if the residents, people don't get off the phone, the system will collapse. Thankfully for the disciplined people in Trinidad and Tobago, that was able to be done. My contact with the police during that time, as I said, I have no reason to doubt what took place there, but my reason to my concern was that during that time there was only one police officer who came into the telephone headquarters where I was stationed. He was totally disoriented. He was highly intoxicated, and he had his rifle with him. So I had to put him in a separate room to catch himself. There was fires on Henry Street. When the fire brigade came accompanied by the police, there were about 6 police officers in one car. And when they realized that my men were armed, they left the fire services and told them, listen, Telco have the police there, we are leaving. And they left.
Thank you very much for
thank you
very much for your
that
time and for that contribution. Before we go back to we had a comment from PC Stephen Llewellyn, and I'm speaking here of the production team folks. They're just quoting some of their thoughts. He's 19 years service. Working on this project re-emphasized the need for me as an officer to have a much greater awareness of safety and security in my career and personal life. Listening to the officers' experiences really made me think critically about the circumstances under which they operated compared to our current policing capabilities. I also empathize with their ordeal, as many on our production crew would have faced life or death situations while on duty. And this is from PC Stephen Llewellyn. Before we go back to, we have a good morning to the panel. There's a retired police officer by the name of Uric Prescott. He's an assistant superintendent. Right. Okay. That's from that came on WhatsApp. Yep. WPC Nadine Marshall Joseph. She's in studio with us here. 15 years service. The camaraderie among my fellow officers and myself as we came together to tell the stories of the officers who worked on July 27, 1990 was heart-wrenching, yet comforting to know that in some small way we were able to help these officers release their pain. We at the TTPS have to do better, as we need to take better care of our own. And this is WPC Nadine Marshall, who's in studio with us right now. We could go back to the lines. 622-3937. Good morning.
Good morning, God.
Morning.
Morning, Natasha, and those officers.
Morning. Good morning.
What that gentleman has just expressed is the lackadaisical attitude of the powers that be at that time that led to the coup, because it seemed as if they were unprepared and they didn't care. However, I wonder if those two officers, they are aware of the part played by civilians in assisting and extricating injured persons from the Red House out of the danger area, where they were taken down to the corner of Queen Abercrombie Street, where they were taken to a hospital. Officer Tong was the first person that they brought. You know, like in those westerns, when a man drunk and they have to drag him with his boots dragging on the ground, that was the situation with Officer Tong. And the crowd now was so brave that they went back up to get some more. But apparently now, some police were sneaking up in Vincent Street. And when the Muslims saw them now, they fired shots at them. But the crowd now panicked, thinking that the soldiers would find at them. And everybody died on the ground. I realized that the Muslims were not shooting at us. So when they got on the ground, they looked up and they saw me. Every man, Jack, got up and we went back down Abercrombie Street. After that, I said, boy, look, you see you? Time to go home. So, civilians played their part because it's they that the Muslim are allowed to take those dead bodies for medical attention.
Thank you very much, sir.
Could I just give a brief comment?
Sure.
Now, we would have already identified that one of our intentions was to create conversations around in 1990. And as you see,
they're happening.
Yeah, the gamut of discussions of different persons. Yeah. But one of the thoughts we had when we were working on the project, and we were very careful to keep it that way, is that we wanted to make sure that we got the voice of the officers, and not just the officers in general in terms of the TTPS, but the officers who were directly affected at the Red House and at the police headquarters. Yeah. Because, I mean, I suppose we could remain here for the rest of the day and you would hear so many other persons who would have been involved and would have been affected. But we believe that for the past 32 years that we've heard a lot of voices. We've heard from many different segments of society of what would have occurred and the trauma that they would have experienced. And this is the first time that we are actually getting the opportunity to share the voices of some of our officers who would have occurred. So I just wanted to make mention of that.
Yeah, let's go back to the lines, and I want to finish this thing. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Morning.
I'll be brief. I would like to know what became of J.P. Madeira.
To who? Sorry?
J.P. Madeira. He was the man in the night when they stormed the station.
Oh, J.P. Madeira. Oh,
yes. What became of it?
All right. Yeah, he's still alive, still going strong. We have a contribution from him that we recorded when we did the series on 1990. Correct. So, but Mr. Madeira is still there, still hanging in there, and we thank him too, because he and Mr. Dominic Kalipasad, they were all in the middle of that. You know, you saw journalism too at its best that night, because these men were calm and with insurgents around them, delivering the news to the public.
Yes.
You know, that was really amazing.
Beside the leader of the insurrection.
Yeah, they were in the belly of the beast.
That can't be nice.
And they kept their professionalism, they kept their nerve, and they continue to keep the public informed. Hello, good morning.
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 Yeah, morning, Gardner, Tasha, and the officers there.
Yeah,
Good morning.
Yeah, I don't know if you all had interviewed Sergeant Abraham. I handed over this. I was a member of the CID. That's actually the CID. I handed over to Sergeant Roll Abraham and went to watch football in the stadium. I don't know.
They're listening. They're thinking now. But go ahead with the story.
This is Sergeant Olin Dick, who was a stolen SNG, who backed the Muslim coming in the front entrance there. But they now see love. I'd really like to contact the officers there to have a conversation with them.
You want to leave a number?
Yeah, we'll take your number.
Take your number, and the officers will call you, right? Just give your name and number. The operator here will speak to you offline.
Because yes, we remember the fact that there was was it the national team that was playing that day?
Yeah, the stadium.
And we heard from Major General Brown, who was at the stadium as well.
Remember Eli, and they spoke of that too. They were in the stands.
Yes.
When they had to hurry and get to Ogden, and so Kurt Kamona, acting corporal, 19 years service. I believe that everyone who looks at this documentary will be just as enlightened as I was upon hearing the stories of these heroic officers who survived a very harrowing experience. I'll forever be proud to be a police officer, knowing that I'm standing on the shoulders of these heroes. PC Allen Kunin, 22 years service. During the interview, I was emotionally connected with the interviewee's experience. The one thing that stood out for me is that those officers are my heroes. They make me feel proud to be a police officer. I'm already looking forward to what's next. I'll leave this one for last. Now there's Coonan, he's 22 years service. PC Darius Allen. Guess how much years this police has? 2 years service. 2 years in the military, they call him a young sweat. But here's what he had.
Name still in chalk.
This project was long overdue. The emotional release after 32 years was something to witness. These officers finally had an opportunity to share their experiences, and be part of that process was very fulfilling. This project had its stressful moments, but we needed to honor the officers who were there that day, which meant making all the effort to be true to them. I'm already looking forward to what's next. And that's PC Darius Allen, 2 years service. But you know, I had left him for that because he reminded me, as a young PTI, you know, I was the youngest on the staff at the time, and son, and I could call his son. I urge you to be true to your colors and your oath, and just continue to serve with these officers, so that when we read about you again, we can say PC Darius Allen, 40 years service.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Gart. But I would love to also say thank you to my Corporal Diaz, my team Marshal Joseph, Constable Llewellyn Cunin, Joseph, for what the right words I'm looking for for calling me the upstart.
Yeah, I know what it says. Try not to sound like you're stooling it.
Yeah, but for calling me the upstart, I'm being honest and being open, and yeah, they were very, very, very helpful. Very, very helpful, and I have to say thank you for them.
Yes.
Because this could have never been possible if I didn't have the assistance and the cooperation of that team.
Of course. Goes without saying, you know. You all, I can imagine you all came together and you saw your comrades in front of you, and you decided to let them bear their soul to you, and now they have a chance to be public, have a chance to see it. 622-3937. Good morning. Sorry about that. 622-3937. And if you're just joining us, you're listening to Dependency. Good morning, Garth and Sasha. Remember the role of TNTech workers played in those dark nights. I can imagine too, of course, you know. Hello? Yes, morning.
When you open the lines for callers to call in, it's here one side, or this topic is at two sides something?
Well,
no,
we have
this
guests
morning
in
we
studio
paying tribute.
We taking a particular angle, sir.
Yeah. Do you want to talk? We had a chance. You had the commissioner in here where we had him a whole day and whole morning twice. You wanted to talk about police brutality. We're not speaking about that this morning, friends. I'm sorry. What we're dealing with is the officers. We're dealing with 1990, and the officers, some of them passed. We're paying tribute to those who are still alive. That's our focus this morning. 622-3937. Good morning. Hello, good morning, sir. Morning.
How are you, sir? Good morning to the gentleman, and good morning to your good self, sir.
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah. I was one of the functionaries at police headquarters. Diaz and Alan will know. Sure, there's a smile in their face now. But what I want to focus to, sir, is that it was very harrowing, traumatizing. But I just want to forget the police part and focus on the TTT, where those reporters like yourself, sir, who were bringing calm to the families and to the country by extension on that particular night. I must say that I was one, as Alan and Diaz know, and the people, some of the functionaries, families thought they were dead, put it very bluntly. You understand? Yeah. And then you had police officers going to the home, but of course they knew the type of work we do from the special branch. And they indicated to them that I must have passed. And other officers would have felt got the same message. So, but more importantly, sir, is that what have we learned from that? We have gone our way. The police officers then and now, when you make comparison, you know, we need to do some work, you know, on that aspect of it. But what have we learned, sir, in that? Should such eventuality, God forbid, do not happen? And history has shown, when you look at what is happening on the world stage, different countries, even democratic countries, things are happening. And we cannot say it would not, and it cannot. He said that, And it happened in the 70s, it happened in the 90s. So history has, of repeating itself. And we need people and all citizens to be very vigilant of a democracy. And I dare say so. If I'm to drill down on this thing and make an analysis, today we might have been speaking Arabic. I don't know. That is my, analysis of that whole situation. Then, so I believe that we must come together at one country and protect our democracy and pass it on to the future generation, those that are born and those that are unborn. Because Allen and Diaz and present officers may not be around when something like this occurs. And to educate is to liberate and be aware of our country and we achieved great things this month. You understand? Great things we achieved this month. The Commonwealth Games and whatever. So and we must utilize these people who have achieved those things to pass it on to our youth. So this thinking and this terrorists and crime, and hopefully it will probably, have an impact on that. We are a great country, and so sorry for taking up your time, and thanks for giving me this opportunity to hear on. Mr. Allen, Mr. Diaz, and the audiovisual team, sir. I want to thank you all for the wonderful job you all have done. It took 32 years, but still continue. God bless you all. See you soon. Take care. All the best.
God bless you too, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Arjun.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Arjun Singh.
Mr. Arjun
Singh.
Right,
Yes.
thank you very much.
Oh,
Yeah.
right.
This is the guy next to the Pope.
Mr. Arjun Singh, thank you very much for your service, sir.
Okay, sir.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.
Yes.
Yeah, man. Okay. He's special branch, right? You were special branch?
Yes, special branch, yes.
Yeah, because they were already targeting. Yeah. Some of them said that they were actually.
God, I would like for us to end with the video. Remember, we have a second video to play. So
shucks.
Let's
yes,
wrap
Gary,
it up
let's get them before we wrap up. Yes, before we run out of time. Come, let's.
I have two things that I want to speak to.
Yes, quickly, Gary, come on.
Quick.
Let's go. Video D.
Quickly,
let's show
Mr.
the police
Diaz.
officers dance again. Let's lighten up the moment again after all of this.
And
remember, we have a part 2 next week. Yes.
Finally, Welcome Relief comes in the form of a scientific-based program that shows us how to manage through the tough, current challenges. Called Habitalism, it features best-selling author on positivity and happiness, Dr. Tal Ben-Shahar, integrated with the award-winning Intangence methodology of Ross. Visit habitalism.me to register now for this free life-transforming program endorsed by the United Nations established University for Peace. Gifted by Guardian Group. Live easy.
Hi, babe.
Hey, how are you? Good morning.
You busy?
Not for you, how could I assist?
Okay, we have a job for you.
Job? What kind of job is it?
Morning, the boss. You have a small work for you, a little 5,000. What you do, pick up some girls, drop them a room by the boss. So you're making a quick 5,000.
Girls, boss. What is this about?
Listen to me now. It's a little small work. You reach in Toko, pick up some girls, drop them a Rima. 5,000.
That sounding like human trafficking. Are you trying to set me up or what? Partner, you know the penalty for human trafficking? Look, I gone now. Excuse me, please.
Do you know that human trafficking is considered a serious crime in Trinidad and Tobago and is punishable by law under the Trafficking in Persons Act Chapter 1210 or the TIPS Act? The penalties for recruiting, receiving, transporting, or housing a victim of human trafficking are a minimum of 15 years for trafficking adults and a fine of $500,000, a minimum of 20 years for trafficking children and a fine of $1 million, a fine of $350,000 and imprisonment for 12 years for transporting a person within or across TT borders for the purpose of exploiting that person for prostitution, a fine of $400,000 and imprisonment for 15 years for persons who receive a financial or other benefit from tips, a fine of $500,000 and imprisonment for 20 years for any person who receives a financial or other benefits from trafficking children, an additional 15 years imprisonment for any trafficker who uses or threatens to use a dangerous weapon on a victim, or where the victim suffers serious bodily harm, or the victim contracts a life-threatening illness or is sexually assaulted, or if the trafficker abuses his power as someone entrusted with the care or supervision of a child victim. Imprisonment for 25 years for any member of the Defense or Protective Services or any official or public officer having the powers of arrest who commits an offense. Court can order forfeiture of convicted trafficker's property. A company can be fined $5 million for engaging in tips.
We are the counter-trafficking unit of the